Welcome to Building While Flying, a Sasha Group podcast where we interview business leaders about how they tackle challenges, stay resilient, and navigate ever-changing skies. Welcome to Building While Flying. My guest today is Rachel Connors, co-founder and CEO of Yellow Leaf Hammocks. Rachel Connors is not just the CEO, but the Chief Enthusiasm Officer of Yellow Leaf Hammocks, a social enterprise dedicated to defeating global poverty through sustainable artisan job creation. She's passionate about social justice and impeccable design, the twin pillars of Yellow Leaf. Artisan activity is the second largest employer in the developing world. Through her work with Yellow Leaf, Rachel is dedicated to conquering the supply chain challenges that have trapped artisans in poverty and kept their goods from breaking through to the mainstream marketplace. And by working with mothers in BOP communities to create authentic, inspired products that enrich consumers' lives, her work is creating a transformative new model for 21st century artisan enterprise. Under her leadership, Yellow Leaf has been recognized as a Best for the World B Corp and amplified its global message through partnerships with Kiva.org, Made in a Free World, and as in the official hammocks of South by Southwest. She's collaborated on products with Bloomingdale's, Tommy Bahama, and CB2, and her work for Yellow Leaf has been featured by Good Morning America, The Wall Street Journal, Vogue, and Oprah's Favorite Things. Rachel is a fellow of GSBI, the Global Unreasonable Institute, the Opportunity Collaboration Reality, and the Coaching Fellowship. My goodness, Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, thank you for that lovely introduction.
Well, I mean, as well as being a compelling product and described as the world's most comfortable hammock, called out by Oprah, we do love to be on her favorite things list. You're also obviously a registered B Corp. You've got this mission of empowering craftswomen. What a story. I'd love to get a little bit of a potted history. Do you want to give us a quick recap of those early days, how you got the idea and the whole business began?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, it feels like no time at all and like 100 years ago. But I guess the official start would date back to this vacation that my husband took in Thailand. He is just like a bundle of energy and an absolute maximizer. He's the type of person who would go on a vacation to the beach without flip-flops because he hadn't found the perfect flip-flop, and he wouldn't suffer a secondary flip-flop. So the same thing happened. He'd been looking for a hammock forever, never bought one because none of them met his standards. And then on this little island in Thailand, he took a motorbike ride, found this shop, found a hammock sitting outside that he just jumped in and immediately knew it was like the most comfortable hammock he'd ever experienced. It was beautiful. He started asking questions, and they were like, oh, it's just kind of woven in this village. These ladies make it. And he's like, where? Tell me. So he flies north, gets a cab driver to drive him 600 miles out to this village in the middle of the jungle, and spends a day there talking to the women, learning about their goals, and the fact that these hammocks were this baby step towards escaping this really, really endemic cycle of poverty. And that their dream was that somebody would come and say, like, I'm going to bring these to the world. And he's like, I will do that. So
I will make this happen.
Yes. He just I volunteer as tribute. So he came home from that trip with a backpack full of the hammocks. He had his business plan written on the air sickness bag from the plane. And he was just all gung-ho, like, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start this company. And I was the hardest first customer. I was like, are you sure you want to leave finance for hammocks? Okay. Well, let's test it out. So the amazing thing that this all led to was that the first, 500 hammocks we sold right out of the trunk of my Volkswagen. Talking directly to customers, getting to know where people's pain points were, seeing the incredible love that people have. You're either a hammock person or not, and hammock people are passionate. Oh my goodness. And so we really crafted the products, around all the feedback we were getting. We built the company based on like the stories we were hearing from people about how they used or weren't able to use their hammocks. And it all grew from, those first like 5,000 conversations under the summer sun.
That's awesome. I love the image of Joe on the plane doodling his business plan and turning up to greet you with a backpack full of hammocks. And also, what a great way to begin road testing the product, literally out with consumers. I mean, what a great way to get early, immediate feedback on how the product was going.
Yes.
You road tested the product, you're out in front of a bunch of people, and you actually had a few other financial models to help you test out and scale the business early on. You mentioned Kickstarter. Can you talk a bit about how you use some of these instruments and strategies to help both learn about the market, but also scale the business in those early days?
Yes, definitely. It's so interesting because we were living in San Francisco. It was peak VC unicorn era. And we, Joe, with his finance background, had a lot of wisdom on like not needing to take on investment like that and have that pressure of growth, especially because our mission is so important to us. And we didn't want anything to happen that would dilute our ability to say like, no, this is what the community is asking for. That's what we're going to do. So a couple of really cool things that we did. One has been our partnership with Kiva.org. And if people are familiar with Kiva, it's the largest microfinance organization in the world.
Incredible concept.
It's amazing what they've done and the way that they've built out these partnerships. It's so many microfinance partners all over the world. The traditional model for Kiva, like the thing most people are familiar with, would be, a woman she could make more money if she could buy a goat, and then she could make cheese from the milk of the goat and sell that at the market. And she would be an entrepreneur. She'd have her own small business.
Right.
She'd borrow the money for the goat and pay it back. Where Kiva was starting to get realize there was an opportunity to expand even more was that not everybody wants the risks and challenges of entrepreneurship, right? Not every person in America wants to be an entrepreneur. Not every person globally wants to run their own small enterprise.
Right.
So they started looking for companies like us who would be able to manage the process and take on the risk on behalf of all the people that they wanted to reach and impact. So they wanted to reach people in the bottom 1%. We're working with women in the bottom 1%. And they, instead of each of those women needing to individually start her own hammock company, they're working with us. We do finance training with them. We help them open their first bank accounts. We work together to decide how much money do they want to make that year, and then we back it into the number of hammocks that they'll weave. They get all that money up front so they can, provide for their families. There's a lot that just kind of keeps you trapped in poverty that would go away if you had like a little bit of money. One example is like a rice cooker, right? Instead of spending hours each day cooking and like making sure that nothing goes wrong and you're over an open flame, it's an electric rice. You plug it in, you come back in half an hour.
Right.
That's the type of thing. That's a huge purchase that almost everybody makes as soon as they save up a little weaving money. So we're able to front load it with the Kiva loans. That's the type of thing that we do with that.
That's phenomenal. So I think it's so interesting to think about this space of the kind of microeconomic model that was developed probably like 15, 20 years ago that Kiva is such a good example of. But it's amazing to think that there's now some infrastructure that you represent that creates layers within the model that, to your point, takes on some of the risk, enables you to reach a wider pool of individual workers, but in a way that helps upskill them and gives them a little helping hand within what is a safe construct of an org like Kiva.
Yes. And
so phenomenal.
for the business, it made such a difference because we were able to, pre-gather money and not have to worry about, one of the biggest ways that a product business, can go out of business or fail is running out of money for purchase orders to supply product. So it helps us get out in front of that. And there's not a lot of like special special opportunities for a social enterprise that's not a nonprofit. So this is like a really cool way that Kiva's revolutionizing that area.
How, and just for I guess for those of our listenership who maybe aren't as familiar with the idea of a social enterprise, how would you describe a social enterprise in the context of what it is that you've built?
Well, what we are doing, there are many definitions and interpretations of the term. What we would consider ourselves to be is like mission-driven and market-based. Mm-hmm. So our reason for being is to create good jobs for moms in rural Thailand and to help them break their families out of the cycle of poverty. For our customers, the main thing we want them to know is that this is the best hammock you're ever going to experience. This is a quality product. And the reason that I think that's important is that the product stands separate from the mission. You're not buying it because, oh, look at this nice woman who made it. So for us, that's like the definition of a social enterprise is that it's financially sustainable and run like a business, but the money is not the only consideration. Right. We're not racing to the bottom in terms of our goal is always to compensate the weavers even more when we can.
It's such an important qualification to make, I think, because ultimately you're a for-profit entity. There is a business being run. You have an incredible, like more than philanthropic, purpose-driven core. But I think there are so many examples where brands confuse kind of the humanitarian purpose of their brand and the quality or the product or whatever the core actual job to be done for the business is, and it makes for confusing marketing and it makes for a confusing message. So I think it's really important to emphasize you are a phenomenal product. You've identified your market. You know what matters to your consumer. They want to buy a hammock because they want to sit in it or put it in their garden or whatever. But the knowledge that there is also this broader mission-based social element to the business is, a win-win. And I remember back working on JP Morgan Chase years ago. I think it was a quote from Jamie Dimon around, where good meets good business. Like doing good is good for business, and that's kind of the premise of that social enterprise sentiment.
And you can't only be focused on doing good, because if you aren't running a sustainable business, the opportunity goes away for your makers, right?
Right. Right.
And I had a background in nonprofit, and I had just seen like how challenging it is to keep something going if you don't have, if you're just saying like, please, we're worthy.
Yeah.
As opposed to, this is fun, this is awesome, like get in on this. And then also you'll feel good, right? There's a nice little
to be the
cherry
world's
on
most
top.
comfortable hammock. Yeah, exactly. As opposed to contribute your money to this great cause. So that follows through to the two real pillars of your business, which you've described as social justice and impeccable design. Can you talk about how those two pillars shape your brand and business as you continue to move forward? How does it shape your day-to-day decisions and your marketing?
Yeah, one of the amazing things that I've always liked about what we're doing is that this really is, again, we were living in San Francisco. We were in the peak of like, this is it's the Warby Parker of this. It's the, everybody is
we're the
innovating.
Uber of hammock making. How?
and we're over here innovating in this very, detailed, meticulous way on just like, how can this hammock be the most comfortable? How can we adjust the tensile strength of this yarn so that it just feels a little bit more, weightless when you're floating in it. And so that's been kind of what we've taken forward when we wanted to introduce our first furniture product, our first hanging solution, the hammock throne. I think we've initially had this idea probably 8 years before the Kickstarter was launched, and we kept going back to the drawing board because we just weren't happy with design. We wanted it, it's pretty simple. Get something that's, holding two ends of a hammock about 5 feet apart in a room, build a base, have some sticks. And we were like, no, this needs to be, I want it to be iconic. I want it to be sitting next to an Eames chair on a poster of iconic seating, you know?
Yes.
And so, and that was where we got with it. And you know, it is always a push and a pull, right? Because the goal is to create these hanging solutions so we can sell even more hammocks. The biggest thing we hear is, I wish I had a place to hang it. So we're trying to create these hanging solutions, make it so more people can buy these hammocks, make it so we can create more jobs in rural Thailand. But at the same time, we're looking at the long-term viability, and we were like, there's no point in just making, you know, something that's good enough. And then some people might buy it. And, you know, it's like, we really need it to be something that we stand behind. And so we have this kind of idea that everything we make is going to have like beautiful design, like the right materials for the use. So, you know, in this case, durable and sturdy. And then it's going to have like, an innovation or an improvement on what's already out there.
I love that. Great. What great criteria and principles to think about. I think as well, having something so specific as a kind of ambition to be next to that Eames chair in terms of aesthetic. I mean, it's a really good like shortcut to showing how seriously you're taking the design element. And also I think important that a lot of this is coming from direct customer feedback. Like, you know, that the single pain point of the hammock buyer is, where do I hang these two ends of this hammock? So that driving innovation, really simple thing that gives you the starting point.
And that was something.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and that was something that came out of those very initial, 500 hammocks we're selling out of the car. That was the biggest thing we heard. Like, oh, I want a hammock so much, I have nowhere to hang it. Yeah. And that just drove us for so long, and it's still part of like the core of what we're trying to do is make sure you can hang it, and you do hang it up once you get it. Those are the two most important things to us.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's like the downloading of the app and never using it. Like someone's got this beautiful woven thing and it sits in a drawer somewhere because they haven't, and because they've got some aesthetic they're trying to follow and it doesn't fit with it. So,
and as a very aesthetically driven person, I understand.
Sidebar, my discovery of hammocks was made in Mexico when I was backpacking in college, and went to Tulum before it turned into the Tulum it is now, and it was literally just like one little bar and like the ruins, and then this place where you could just rent a palapa, and it was just like a cover, and you brought your own hammock and you just hung your hammock in there, and it cost like $2 a night.
That sounds amazing.
That's where I discovered that you can sleep a very comfortable full night through in a hammock and be super happy.
It's very common, like in Central American, South American cultures, it's really common to sleep in a hammock. And that's one thing Daniel Lubetsky, who invested in us on Shark Tank, he's the founder of Kind, really aligned with us mission-wise, but also he's from Mexico, and he's just like, why are Americans not in hammocks?
Right.
He's so business wise, the product, he was like, there is a huge opportunity here, which we were grateful to hear, because a lot of times when you're trying to sell someone on how big hammocks are, they go, hammocks?
Like, isn't that the thing you have in the garden for like 2 months out of a year? And
you lay in like those, like, oh.
There's a method. You've got to do diagonal lie if you want to have the all night.
That is, yes. For the South American style like we have, you lay diagonally, and that is maximum comfort.
I love it.
And they don't wobble or flip because they don't have the sticks at either end. The sticks are why I think Americans don't like hammocks. Most of ours come with those, and then they're very wobbly and scary.
And you feel like you're never going to get out of one. If you're
like a rope mattress.
Not with the yellow, not with these hammocks. These are going to be the ones that work for us. So you talked a bit about your innovation process and the fact that a lot of these come from a kind of a moment of customer inspiration. What about the fireproof hammock? Where did that one come from?
Oh my gosh, this was amazing. So we got a live chat on our website several years back. And it was somebody saying, I'm interested in a large order of hammocks. And we were like, great, cool. Ended up being a 5-year process because the person who was reaching out was doing procurement for Virgin Voyages, Richard Branson's new cruise line.
Yeah.
And they had I mean, it seems like a breathtakingly simple idea. They had an idea that they wanted to put a hammock outdoors on every single cabin of the ship. I think the ship is built so that every cabin has a deck as a patio. There's no internal ones. So everybody, and they reached out and they're like, yeah. And we were like, oh, no problem. One of the great things about being an artisan business is that we can really tinker and innovate. It doesn't need to be a production run of, 20,000 units in order to make it work.
Prototyping, but yeah, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we just got in there and started innovating, and then they said, okay, so we want it to be, these are the dimensions we want. We're thinking red. And it should be fireproof. And we just laughed on the call, and then it turned out they were serious. They needed a fireproof hammock because of maritime regulations. Right. This is why nobody has cruise ships with hammocks yet. And so Joe embarked on a 3-year textile exploration journey because there are fireproof materials out there, but they don't feel great on your skin. And we wanted to feel great when you're sitting in a bathing suit. We don't want it to feel clammy or weird. And so eventually, after many, many trips and many, many prototypes, we ended up with a fireproof hammock that's on every single Virgin ship in every room.
I love that. It's so funny because it sort of brings the hammock back to one of its historical beginnings, because it also used to be the bed of choice for sailors crossing oceans. And now you're back there again with high-end paying Virgin Cruises customers.
There's nothing more nautical than a hammock. You don't quite... It really fits.
I love it. So... you were invited to be on Shark Tank. Was that kind of a big unlock for the scaling of the business? Talk a bit about that crazy Shark Tank experience. Yes.
So fast forward of many years and a lot of work later, they say that that's how long it takes to become an overnight success.
A good line.
But it was amazing. We were contacted by the producers at Shark Tank after they saw a Kickstarter campaign that we'd done for the hammock throne, which is our really great innovation in hammock furniture that you can have indoors. And we still went through all of the rigmarole of the process. It is an intensive 45-page application just to get, that's step one out of maybe 50 steps. But I'll admit I was a little hesitant about going on Shark Tank. And again, my husband was like, no, this is going to be amazing.
This will be great.
I was really worried. I was concerned about our ability to, you lose all control, right? They want to make great TV. And we want people to think we have a great business. And it doesn't really matter to them if those two things both happen. So luckily, we had an amazing time. We really, really prepared. The producers worked with us a ton to get us camera ready. Right. And in the end, we had I think the absolute best possible outcome that you could have appearing on Shark Tank. So it was definitely a game changer in our trajectory.
That's awesome. I love it. So let's take a little jump across to marketing. You have some big name partnerships. You've made some really great kind of collaborations over the years. What are some of your biggest levers for marketing? Does it live very much in that kind of partnership, social proof space?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that we've really grown much more organically than I think a lot of our fellow direct-to-consumer brands. Part of that is probably because we were starting before there was even Shopify or, right. there I don't know if Instagram even existed when we first started. Right. So we didn't have the idea that we just, jump on, make a cool ad, sell a bunch of things, in your Instagram feed. This was not how we began. We really were focused on just one-to-one connection and getting, I think one of the biggest vehicles we have for promotion still is our customers talking about us and putting the hammocks out, installing them, and people coming and trying them in their, at their house, and then everybody on the block gets one.
Right. It's interesting because such a unique and kind of unusual, it's a sort of one-off purchase in many ways, but it also, the great bonus of that is it's a talking point. So what better thing than to leverage your audience as essentially a kind of megaphone for driving intrigue for the business?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was the selfish reason that we were determined that people actually hang up their hammock, is that it really helps us in the long run, that they're going to be raving about it. And we get all the time people sending in videos that are like, okay, try it for the first time. They're videoing their neighbor getting in. And one of the first things so many people say is, oh, I feel like I'm back in the womb.
Oh, really? I love that.
To me, that is the craziest thing. I have heard it hundreds, if not thousands of times out of people when they get in.
I get it. I totally get it, but it was not what's in my head the first time I got in a hammock. But yeah, I can see that. Earlier on you said it's like floating, which I completely, there's something really magical, and there's just the swaying gently and the breeze kind of lulls you off. So I can sort of see the back to the womb concept a little bit.
There's science that says that the rocking motion of a hammock actually helps you fall asleep more quickly, and they think it's because it imitates the rocking in the womb.
Well, that's fascinating. That's an entire TikTok series right there, girl. Right there. And it sounds like, Shopify or Instagram buyable pins, all that sort of stuff, they may not have existed at the time, but it sounds like they're things that you've leapt into. How do you go about adopting new developing tech or new platforms or new advertising opportunities, and what's the power play for your guys right now?
Yeah, it's great because we've got this mix of old and new. Like, we've got this 1,000-year-old craft that we're marketing, and then we're just jumping into your Facebook feed, your Instagram, your Google ads, and bringing that kind of like primal feeling into a very 21st century shopping experience. I think for us, we've always tried to keep things really diversified. So early on, we had a couple experiences where, we put too many eggs in one basket, and would just experience like a huge turnaround if anything changed with that medium or that customer or anything. So now we kind of have a rule that we don't want anything to be more than like 10 or 15% of the business.
Makes sense.
So we've got, that means we're kind of throwing a lot of different things at the wall, though. We've got amazing agency partners that we work with on social advertising, on Google advertising. We have an affiliate focused PR agency that does amazing work with us. We've got email, an email marketing that is just like, we're really trying to bring people into like, add something. I'm personally like the worst with email. I probably have 20,000 unread emails in my inbox right now. But
we had a whole conversation about that at the office the other day.
I would win any contest. But we do like a relaxation challenge that people can opt into, where we literally send like little bite-sized ways that you can relax in 5 minutes or less in your day as part. So we're trying always to add value and not just be that annoying thing getting in the way of seeing your pretty pictures when you scroll.
And then how much does the social enterprise side of the storytelling come into play? Like, how do you balance those things out with your product storytelling and your bigger brand storytelling?
It's interesting. So we're always kind of balancing is the perfect word. We really want to be product driven in our sales process. We do, at a certain point in the funnel, always make sure to point out, share a little bit of the impact story, share why the hand craftsmanship actually adds to the comfort of the product, right? Like, these weaves are so intricate, they can't be replicated by a machine. So it's still framed from the product benefit, the customer benefit perspective. We find that there's a lot of interest in the social impact around the holidays. So that's one of the ways, you were mentioning it's kind of a one-off product. Gifting is huge for us. And so people really, really get interested in that, November, December during the holiday season.
That makes tons of sense. Yeah, of course.
And I think that, what we always kind of do, the interesting thing is a lot of people buy the hammock without even realizing it's handmade. So then we'll get a note after like, oh my gosh, this is signed by someone. It's like, this is amazing, you know? So we want to do more to be able to connect people post-purchase. Each hammock is signed by the person who wove it. So we're hoping that we can kind of build a connection where you could, you know, message that weaver or like read their life story, and on our site. You know, we're probably going to add a QR code in the next batch of labels that we print so that we can connect everyone.
I love that. And part of it is that I think what it speaks to is if you think about the entire customer journey with your product, before they even know about it, through to toying with the idea of getting it to experiencing it, the experiencing of the product is when they are at their most emotionally connected to it. And that at the point when you're landing the most emotive part of your brand story, I think gives it the greatest chance to land, and also so authentic a way for them to then be able to share the story. It's like, I bought this thing because it was awesome and it was on Instagram and I just thought I want one of them. And now I discover it has this deep story. I really like that. That's
kind of like, yeah, how we want it to be is like the icing on the cake, you know, never like the main thrust, but it's so cool, like especially in a time where, you know, a lot of our stuff is just coming in a box and we have no connection to, you know, even who's selling it to us, right? Let alone who's making it. This is like a very deep, intimate connection with the maker.
So true. And I think the other thing is you no doubt have a whole other feeder into the brand, which is people who come directly through the social enterprise angle, like who come across you because someone has written up 10 amazing Kickstarter brands that are doing good in the world, and they're like, I want to buy a gift and it needs to be from, because it does something beyond just being a product. And so there's that whole other way into the brand that I think is happening as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially on Amazon. We're finding like we're figuring out a whole new way to present ourselves, because there you know, we don't have as much control, right, over what people are seeing or the, you know, the way they're journeying through the experience. But what we can do is distinguish ourselves in that long, you know, scroll of products that are, you know, you can get, I'm sure you can get a hammock on Amazon for $20. But, you know, we've tried like front loading the hand woven, or like trying to get a little bit more of the craftsmanship story in there, because it's a completely different customer that's like, if they're interested in it, this is going to distinguish it.
I think you're shining a light on a really important thing for anyone marketing to think about, which is just the way in which people experience the decision-making process through these different places. In Amazon, you're right, like the whole site is so functional and rational.
Yes,
it's built for people looking for a deal, but now it's overlaid with a slight mistrust of, you know, brands that aren't who they say they are, and you not wanting to buy the absolute bargain basement option because it's actually for someone as a gift. Yeah. So you're on the lookout for the thing that stands out a bit differently, even when you're on the Amazon site. So it's the kind of almost like reverse psychology of like, actually we're going to present something truly compelling and differentiating in this super optimized space, and that will do wonders for the brand.
So it's definitely, as we've leaned into that a little more, we've seen a big difference, and it's really interesting to each platform that you go on, you know, just like each marketing channel that you build out, you have to keep that learning, like beginner's mindset, and be willing to do things a little differently.
I love that. Well, it sounds like you mentioned the word tinkering earlier on, that as an artisan brand, you're able to tinker a little bit with the process. And it sounds like that ethos tracks through all sorts of elements of the brand, how you think about product and how you think about finessing and optimizing marketing as well. Couple questions just back to like the running of the sort of the two partners at the top of the company. You mentioned that you're the sort of chief enthusiasm officer. Obviously, your partner brought the original idea. What is the dynamic? How do you each balance in terms of leadership of the company, and what does that look like for you guys?
Oh my goodness. Well, yes. So I am the chief enthusiasm officer, and Joe is the chief relaxation officer. we decided to start this business together. I think we'd been dating for less than a year, and now we're married. It's been quite a long time, and truly, it's. I think like, you know, at any given point, I would have said like we balance things out a little bit differently, but broadly, he is very, very good with finance and operations and the visionary part. Like he is the brand, right? He has this passion for hammocks. He has such a deep understanding of like, you know, what this is going to emotionally bring into people's life. And I am much more concentrated in like, how does it look? How does it feel? What, you know, I think I'm pickier with everything that we're doing because I'm not the easy, you know, I'm not just like, it's a hammock, it's wonderful.
He's in possibility and you're in kind of like the actuality and the perfecting the experience, I guess. Yes. And I love that. I think it's amazing. Like he without his vision, I don't know how, you know, this crazy idea would have gone this far and taken off this way. But also I think one thing that we've really learned in this journey, and I think it's a note that I had not really heard before, when you're working with a co-founder or if you're in a marriage, there tends to be this impulse to polarity. Right? So you say like, well, he's the visionary one and I'm the one with my feet on the ground. But actually, in reality, it's sort of like we're both a little visionary and crazy. Right. I'm just a little further on the spectrum, you know, over towards like, wait, before we jump, should we at least like grab some materials to build that parachute while we fly? So I think that's an important thing to know is like when we're in a co-founder relationship, when you're in a partnership, there's a tendency to be like, oh, well, if you're on that side, I'm on that side. I'm way over here and we're opposed. And what it actually is like, we're just saying slightly different extremities of the same thing a lot of the time. It's the sort of yes-anding part of it versus the kind of pendulum swing.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And like, it took a long time for me to learn when he's off on a visionary tour. I'm just like, cool, I'm taking notes and then we'll come back and figure out how we do all this.
Good learnings over there. I love it. So when we think about today and what the next year or 2 or 3, what is next for you guys? What is the big focus right now? What are you most excited about as you think about the future for the company?
Oh, I mean, well, primary in everything we do is always figuring out how to have enough inventory. So year after year, we keep growing, and we keep our biggest challenge every summer is always that we run out of hammocks. No matter how many we make, and we think we're so prepared, and we're like, this is going to be the biggest year ever, we run out again. So inventory, the less romantic part of inventory planning and making sure that we bring as many people in to the program with reasonable expectations for, you know, how their weaving income will grow year upon year. But on the product side, what we're really excited about is the new portable hammock stand that we're launching called the Vista. And this is it's a super light, super portable hammock stand you can take with you. It comes in a duffel bag. You can assemble it on the beach, you know, on the sidelines of the soccer game. And it takes 30 seconds to put together. It weighs like 12 pounds, which is I believe it's the lightest freestanding hammock stand in the world, based on all the research I've done.
This is awesome.
It's amazing. And it's a freestanding hammock chair that you can kick back in for a full body experience. So like, I just can't stop thinking about all of those people, like, you know, running around with kids, never getting a chance to actually relax on the weekends. This is your chair.
The thing. You know what popped into my head when you were talking about that is, you know, those the blow up balloon. I don't even know what it's called. The kind of like you have to run around with it in the
Oh
wind.
yes, yeah, they were like a big craze a few years back. I think they're literally called.
And it's like such a workout to fill that thing up with air, and it has to be like windy, and you lie down at the end because you're so exhausted by trying to fill it up.
And then you're laying on this piece of vinyl and you're just sweating on it. I can't imagine that. That was the part that always looked horrible to me. Just the sweat.
And instead, you put it up in 30 seconds, lie back with your whatever spiked seltzer, and your job's are
There are cup holders on the Vista. Yes, we are very aware that you'll need a drink.
Partnerships in your future right now. Oh, that's so exciting. Well, I feel like the Shark Tank the opportunity that Shark Tank brought to you was just one piece on your journey. It sounds like you've been phenomenal, both of you, at spotting opportunities, manifesting progress for the company, but also doing really great work supporting communities in Thailand at the same time. So huge congratulations, and I'm very excited to see the Vista.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah,
screen near us soon.
Absolutely, yeah. It'll be first on the screen and then in your world, and it's gonna be. We're always just trying to find more ways to get people in hammocks. That is our goal. We want you to feel that vacation feeling as often as possible.
Oh, that sounds like a dream to me. Make it happen. I'm in. Count me in.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining the show, Rachel. Such a pleasure chatting with you.
It has been lovely to chat with you.